put this up. Now, some of you will remember this and some of you won't. This is one of the main reasons for me why self-talk is so important, okay? Self-talk is not only important to keep you happy, successful, everything else, but it also gives you a third choice in life, okay? So, when you are unhappy, so this is Mr. Unhappy Face or Mrs. Unhappy Face, and that normally means change, doesn't it? Because we've done all that work before around the different change stages of change we go through. It's quite hard and difficult or challenging to go through it. When you are unhappy, we have three choices in life, okay? And here are the three choices. The first choice is, can you change the change, this bubble at the top here? What I mean by that is, can you change what's making you unhappy or a little bit out of balance or whatever it may be? We would class that as fight. So you've probably come across fight or flight syndrome, okay? If you can, something happens, you're not happy with it or you're out of balance, you can try and change it. In other words, you can change the external world. You can change the world around you. If you can change it, great, you can change it, but sometimes we can't change it, and that's where the session that we did around lockdown came in, because we weren't able to change that, were we? We were just told what to do and when to do it and where we could go and where we couldn't go and so on and so on. So if you can change what's not making you a bit unhappy, then go and change it. But that's changing the external world, okay? That's changing the things around you to put yourself back in balance, okay? If you can't change it, then the next option is to exit from it, which would be flight, okay? So we have fight and flight, the two natural responses that we have built, as I suppose it's come down the DNA from survival times. And that means if you can't actually change your surroundings, what's physically going on in the outside world, then you could exit from it. So that's flight. And there's no shame in exiting from things, by the way, as long as it's a conscious choice. Yeah? So some people, decide to exit from a situation and then beat themselves up for it. No, if you choose to, do you know what, I'm going to move away from that, that's absolutely fine. Yeah? The exit isn't weakness, and change and challenge isn't strength. It can take as much strength to exit from a situation than it can to challenge it. So it's not about strength or the right thing to do, but there's just two simple options. If there's something in your life you don't like, or there's something in the world you don't like, can you change it? Yes, okay, if you can, go and change it. If you can't, can you exit from it? Can you move away from it? That might be another option. But if neither of those options are possible, the only option that is left to us is to change ourselves. And the way that we change ourselves is by changing our internal dialogue, which is our thinking, that will affect ultimately our beliefs and results that come out from it. Okay? So if you can't change the change, you can't change what's happening, you can't exit from it, then the other option is to change yourself. So those are your three options. If you can change it, go and change it. If you want to exit from it if you can. If you can't, we might need to change our internal dialogue so we can live with it or actually learn to like it. So this was a great example when the lockdown happened. Okay, COVID-19 came in, a lot of people went into transition, people generally weren't very happy. Could they change it? No, we were told you can't go to work, you can't do this, you can't go out your house, you can't see your loved ones, bang, 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 bang. So you can't change it. Could we exit from it? No, we couldn't exit from it. You can't get on a plane and go somewhere else where there isn't the COVID lockdown, and so on and so on and so on, which meant it left, it left a lot of people unhappy. And the ones that actually dealt with this very quickly and got over it were the ones that went, okay, it is what it is. What can we take out of this situation and move forward? So their self-talk was helpful and not hindering, as in, this is a nightmare, I hate it, I can't believe it, it's terrible, how long is it going to last for? All that bad stuff, rather than, it is what it is, how can we make the best of it? Or even, what opportunities can we take out of this situation that we maybe didn't have before? For instance, the massive opportunity of getting everybody in the business to learn how to use technology to be able to talk to each other online without travelling any distances, for argument's sake. So there are opportunities to take when we start changing this internal dialogue, and that's the whole point of the session. But for me, that's the important reason why why I teach it, why I try and use it, because if you can't change the outside world, the only thing left to change is the inside world on the back of it, isn't it? Yeah? Okay, so on that note, people might remember this book that I put up. I know that Pete remembers it. He can't be on today's session, which he's gutted about actually, because he was one of the people that asked for this. But we are recording it, and I know you guys have had struggled to get hold of the recordings. I'm now manually recording these, so there's going to be a couple of weeks lag, but we will be able to get everything up onto a YouTube page you should be able to access. Okay? So what to say when you talk to yourself? This is my, without offending anybody, this is my little Bible. I read it 20 years ago, 15, 20 years ago, something like that. And I go back to it all the time. I actually went back to it because I knew I was doing this session today. So I kind of went back to that as well and had another read of it to make sure I was sharp of it and I was still doing the right things and everything. So if you want lots of information on self-talk, that's the book for you. There's loads of other titles out there, but that's the one that I would recommend. And I will cover some of that today for you. So, what you say when you talk to yourself? Powerful new techniques to program your potential for success. Okay, guy called Chad Halmstetter. A couple of you downloaded this last time I mentioned it and are halfway through it, 3/4 of the way through it now, and I know it's giving you some benefit because you've given me some feedback, which is great. Okay, so yeses and nos. Very briefly, don't want to spend a long time on this. I did do it in one other session ages ago. Okay, in the book there was a study done. Okay, it's quite an old study now, but nevertheless you'll kind of get the point. Okay, there was and I won't get you to guess this like I did last time, but there was a study done of thousands of 16-year-olds, and they were asked two questions. Question number one was, how many times in your life have you been told the word no? That was question number one. Okay? How many times in your life, from the age that you can remember to now, do you think you have been told the word no? Okay? How many times? Think of it per day, per week, and we can times it up, however you want to think of it. The average response from that population was 148,000 no's. From the age that you can remember to the age of 16. Okay? Now sometimes we say no to keep children safe. If my daughter runs across the road and there's a car coming, I'll go, no. Now there's like 4 no's straight away. Yeah? So sometimes we do that to keep them safe. However, the command no is it stops your thinking dead. Okay, it kind of mutes the thinking going on. And the average response was 148,000 no's. Okay, they were then asked the second question: how many times in your life has somebody sat down and told you that you can achieve anything you want if you put your mind to it, and you'll be great at whatever you do? And the average response from that population, the same population, was 3 times. I know this writing should be a bit bigger. I apologise, I normally do that a bit bigger. So you've got 148,000 no's versus, on average, 3. You can achieve whatever you want. Okay. Now that study was quite old. I think that's probably changed a little bit over the years. Okay. There hasn't been a study done similar like it, otherwise I would have used it. Not that I'm aware of, anyway. And the key thing here is the imbalance. Okay, so even if those numbers have changed slightly over the years, I will put every penny that I own on a bet to say, for the majority of people on the planet, there is no balance in the self-talk. What I mean by that is there is more no's and hindering stuff than there is yeses and helpful stuff that goes on for people. And for me, it doesn't really matter about the actual numbers. It was the gap that was the difference between the two. And we talk to ourselves in a bad way far more than we talk to ourselves in a good way. We also talk to other people far more in a bad way than we do in a good way, even if we're not realising it to people. You know, whether you're kind of like, oh, you're rubbish at names, you are, oh, you're crap at that. It's not really your thing, that, is it? All that type of stuff that do we just say, even if we say it in jest, it goes into the psyche and it comes out in the behaviour and in the performance, more importantly, going forward. So I wanted to share that with you because there's a gap. There's a major gap between how often we talk to ourselves in a bad way and how often we talk to ourselves in a good way. One of the questions I ask people regularly, some people on this call, well, I've probably asked you this before, the question, rhetorical question in this situation, when's the last time you beat yourself up about something? This morning? Getting on this call? Trying to meet yourself? Yesterday? It will happen, it would have happened quite regularly. And then the other question is, when's the last time you sat yourself down and reminded yourself what you were good at? Because that doesn't happen as often, anywhere near as often. In fact, sometimes on my courses, I give people 60 seconds to write down how great they are on a piece of paper. In other words, what they're good at. Words would describe them when they're at their best. I give them 60 seconds, and some people really struggle to write anything. And so the people that do write stuff only write 2 or 3 things. Yet if I was to ask them the question, write down all the words that you can think of when you're at your worst, well, those words come a lot quicker. And the reason they come a lot quicker is because you know what, you talk to yourself in a bad way more than you talk to yourself in a good way, and other people talk to yourself in a bad way more than they talk to you in a good way. And I know we're trying to bring some balance to that force in our society now about saying the right thing and, you know, well-being and mindfulness, and this is what it's all about. It's all about bringing that balance back and actually stop beating ourselves up and start talking to us in a healthy way. So let's have a look at this. The study was done in 1986, like I said, so it's quite an old study. Those numbers might have changed, but I'd still wager everything I've got on the fact that there is an imbalance in that self-talk, okay? And some people might have talked to themselves 100 to 200 times, even 1,000 times, if they've been lucky enough over the years and they've learned a little bit about this stuff and so on and so on and so on, okay? Okay, so internal dialogue happens in your head every 7 seconds. People have heard me say this before. On average, every 7 seconds, there is some type of internal dialogue going on in your head. So if you just sat there and thought to yourself, really? Is it every 7 seconds? You just did it. Okay? So on average, every 7 seconds. If you want it to be a little bit more accurate, that includes sleep time. So realistically, whilst you're awake, it's probably every 3 or 4 seconds there is some type of internal dialogue going on in your head. So that's how often that you talk to yourselves, okay? You either talk to yourself in a helpful way. Will this thought help me get to where I want to get to? Or will it hinder me getting to where I want to get to? Okay? So, if you woke up this morning and went, oh, I'm knackered, and I'm tired, and I'm bored of this stuff that's going on, another day in my home office. If you spoke to yourself like that, that's what your brain will target for the day. So if you get to the end of the day and go, God, I felt knackered today, I felt worn out, I'm still annoyed, I can't wait to get back to normal. And so that the self-talk that is coming out will lead into action, and I'll show you how that links together in a moment, okay? However, if you, so that's hindering. If you got up today and went, okay, got loads to do, I'm going to get through it, it's going to be a good day, I'm going to utilise the time at home a bit more effectively, I'm going to go out for a walk at lunchtime, get some endorphins moving, I'm going to make sure that at the end of the day I've ticked the jobs off my list that I want to. If you talk to yourself in a better way, your brain aims for that instead, okay? This is why it's so vital. And it does make me cringe because I do this job. I listen to people talk, and it's just, you know, I was talking to my girlfriend last night, and she said, I've been tired all day, you know. When I woke up this morning, I was tired, and I kind of knew it was going to be one of those days. And I'm thinking, self-talk, self-talk, self-talk. Yeah? Your brain will latch on to whatever is being said, okay? And it's you that say it. So this is why it's so important. However, it isn't positive or negative, okay? So let's just let's just say it's not positive and negative, okay? So when you talk to yourself, you can't use the description of positive and negative. Positive and negative describes your attitude, which does generate from your thinking, which we'll go through in a moment, okay? But you don't have positive. If you want to be really pedantic, your thoughts are electrical impulses, which means they are all positive, okay? So I know I'm saying that tongue-in-cheek, but if anybody's ever said to you, come on, think positive, no, you can't do that. This thought's either going to help you or it's going to hinder you. It's not that you've got an attitude towards the thought. The attitude comes after the thought, based on how you feel about stuff, okay? So, helpful and hindering is the term that we need to use, okay? This is a passage from the book, and I really like the passage, okay? So I'm going to read it out to you. I don't normally just read stuff like this on a slide, but I'm going to read it out to you, okay? Self-talk is a way to override our past negative programming by erasing or replacing it with conscious, positive, new directions, okay? Positive direction, yes. Self-talk helpful, right? Self-talk is a practical way to live our lives by active intent rather than passive acceptance. So in other words, you are giving yourself instructions every day rather than letting other people walk through your mind with their dirty feet. Okay? Remember the Gandhi quote, I do not let other people walk through my mind with their dirty feet. So self-talk is a way of making sure you get what you want during the day, and you can use and harness the power of the self-talk with that, okay? It's a way to reprogram the brain, okay? Reprogram those pathways. And in the past sessions, I've done little things about pathways and things like that. I'm not going to go into neurology today, because self-talk is psychology, not neurology. And, I've done that a number of times before for people. But when you talk to yourself, it creates a new pathway in the brain. If you talk to yourself over and over again, the pathway gets bigger, quicker, faster, easier, sleeker for the chemical to be released and leave a residue behind. And that forms a new habit on the back of it. But the spark of all of that, the thought, is the self-talk itself. It's like, imagine when you wake up in the morning, you've got to go to work, and work is your destination, okay, and you have to have a taxi to get to work. Now you can either get into that taxi and say, please take me to this place, and you give them an absolute instruction and they will hopefully take the shortest route to get you to that place. Or you get into a taxi in the morning and you say, I'm not sure where I want to be today, and they go, alright, I'll take you somewhere else. That's the difference I often call your self-talk your taxi driver, okay? Because when you get in a taxi, you give them an instruction exactly where you want to go. If you are passive acceptance, you are letting things happen. And that's like getting into a taxi and going, where are you going tonight? Take me with you, okay? So hopefully that might give you a little visual of when you get up in the morning, what instruction do you want to give yourself about the day? Or are you going to just let your own thoughts and other people's negative, hindering thoughts take over your day, and that's the way it's going to be, kind of thing, yeah? I had this situation yesterday. I came in, my self-talk was good. I had to fill an online council form in for COVID grant stuff. It took me 2.5 hours, and when I went to submit it, you couldn't save and go back to it. You had to do it live. It took me 2.5 hours, and when I submitted it, it said session expired. And at that point, as you can imagine, my self-talk wasn't very useful. There was some expletives that came out, and my self-talk was lots like, I've just wasted 2.5 hours, I could have been so much more productive in that time, why do they need all this information anyway, bang, 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 bang. And that annoyed me for about another 30 minutes after that, until I made a choice, okay? I couldn't change it, I couldn't exit from it because I had to do it again, because it needed to go through. So what I had to do was change my mindset, and I kind of went, okay, well, it's not going to do you any good, John, keep moaning anymore, because it's winding yourself up, you're getting annoyed, you're not as focused as you were before, so hang on, it's gone, it's done, you can't do anything about it, let's rejig the jobs list for the day and do what we can do before we leave. Okay, so this is about just noticing that. Okay, so you will have all have seen this before. If you haven't, this is how your thinking comes out in your results. Okay, your thinking, whether it be helpful or hindering, generates your emotional chemical release. Okay, the chemical release that will give you enough energy or not to be able to go and take your actions that you need and be motivated and so on and so on and so on and happy. And you'll get some results on the back of it. Okay, now a number of you have seen this a number of times. It's the basis of everything we do. It's called the TIA cycle: thinking, emotions, actions, results. If the thinking's not right, the emotional chemical release won't be right, the actions won't be right, and the results that you get won't be right. If you want an example of that, think of a job in the past that you've rushed because you've just needed to hit a deadline. You've rushed it, but it's not been your best work. It's not been best reflected, and you haven't felt the best about it. And to be honest, it's probably made you more tired than if you'd have sat back and done it properly, than rushed it in the first place. Okay? So, this is how it works. But because a lot of you have seen this before, I've got another little model here. And this is something that all of my colleagues used to use. It's a little bit more pink and fluffy than my kind of model. So thinking, emotions, actions, results. This one is the same model, but it talks a little bit more in depth about kind of the head and the heart. So what you've got here is the head, thoughts. Okay? So thinking comes first, yeah? Then you've got heart. Okay? So that's the emotions, the feelings and things that come out. Okay? And they both lead to hands, that they call hands. So head, heart and hands. And hands allows you to then obviously come out in your behaviour, take the action and everything else. So, you know, look, the reason I've thrown this up is so you've seen a different version of how this works. Sometimes I think when you start talking about heart, you lose some people. It's a little bit pink and fluffy. But the reason I've put this up here is because just Google this stuff, guys. Just Google thinking to behaviour and see what comes up. Because, you know, the TIA cycle is something that I designed. But it's based on thousands of years of psychology. Okay? You know, John hasn't invented thinking, emotions, action, results. I've just put it in a nice little bit of a jigsaw for everybody to look at. Yeah? So this is out there for you to see. You can find it. Just be aware though, there are models that will go thinking, actions, results. Okay? And by rights, it's accurate. Okay? So by rights, that is accurate. It's alright, just had a little warning come up. It's alright, it's gone away now. By rights, that is accurate. Thinking leads to actions, leads to results. However, you can't take out the emotion. And some people try to do that. Okay, especially less emotional people will try and take emotion out of the equation. Well, unfortunately, regardless of your personality profile, you have chemicals in your system 300 times more powerful than morphine. So you can't really take them out of the equation. If your self-talk is set up to make you feel bad, you can't just skip over that and go thinking, actions, results. We have to bring the chemical in. We are emotional beings, so we really have to bring that in. But it's the spark, electrochemical, electro being the thought, chemical being the release, being the emotion. In that order, remember, electrochemical. This is something that I've done with you before. So if you want to feel happy, you have to think happy. If you want to feel successful, you have to think successful. That's why there's cheesy books in the library called Think Successful, Be Successful. Okay? It will work the other way for you. If you feel knackered, if you say you are knackered, you will feel knackered. If you say you are bored, you will feel bored. So this is why it's so important that we talk to ourselves in the right way. Okay. So once your program and your self-talk creates beliefs, your beliefs then create attitudes. So this is where your positive and negative attitude will come. An attitude is based on something you believe, whereas self-talk is the programming of that belief. Okay? So if you believe that you are an organised person, if you see somebody that's disorganised, you might have a negative motivation towards them. You might not believe that they do things the right way of the world. okay? And not everybody's beliefs are the same. We all have different filing cabinets. Your beliefs are made up of every single thing you've ever said, heard, felt, smelt, seen, tasted, whatever the sense. It's all put in your filing cabinet. It's all recorded. It's just our recall of this that's the problem, by the way. So they reckon our memories, they remember everything from every sense all the time. It goes into our storage, and it's just our struggle to recall that storage because of the 7 things that are going on all the time for us every 7 seconds. Okay, this is what hypnosis is based on. Hypnosis is based on turning off your conscious mind and to getting straight into your filing cabinet and trying to pull some files out or put some new ones in, depending on why you're being in therapy or hypnotist or whatever it may be. Okay, so your beliefs create your attitude, but it's your self-talk that creates the beliefs. So if you've got an attitude towards something and that's not what you want anymore, when somebody says you need to change your attitude, you do, that's not very practical, because it's quite difficult to change an attitude when you believe something. What we have to do is try and change the belief by the self-talk. That takes a little bit of time, okay? More to the point, we do have a negative connotation around the word attitude in this country, in other cultures that I've been in, not all, but if I was to say to one of you guys now, if I picked one of you, just at random, John, there you go, John, later on today, John, I'm going to give you a call. I'd like to have a chat to you about your attitude. Now, at this point, John is not going, all right, John, that'll be great, yeah, I look forward to that. No, because normally, when somebody asks you about attitude, it normally means negative. If somebody says, I don't like that, your attitude, the essence is it's a bad thing. So again, just like self-talk, when it comes to attitude, there's no balance in the force. I can almost guarantee that you haven't been told as many times how good your attitude is versus how bad your attitude is, okay? Because again, there's no balance. So just telling somebody to change their attitude, not that useful. Help them change the way they talk to themselves and build better beliefs in order to change their attitude. And you might be thinking, well, how can we talk to ourselves better? Don't worry, I've got that for you before you go today, okay? Your attitudes then create feelings and emotions. So just like I said, if I'm an organised person, which I am, and I see somebody disorganised, I probably have a negative attitude towards that because I don't agree with people being disorganised, and it gives me a certain feeling, a certain annoyance, a certain little pet hate of annoyance, and so on and so on and so on. And my green on my profile is quite low as well, so I kind of think that not a lot of people are interested in what I do in life, and does that mean I need to be interested in what other people do in life? And when I see somebody getting involved in somebody else's argument, some of my belief is, well, hang on a minute, why are you getting involved? And that's because the way I see the world, but that person might have lots of empathy and want to get involved, and that's the way they see the world, and so on and so on and so on. So it does it makes you feel a certain way. Mick's put, I only get told when it is not working, and never thanks for it working. Do you mean, is that it or IT? I'm not quite sure what you mean there. Only get told when IT is not for tech, right? Okay, fine, yeah, I get it, yeah. I only get told when it's not working, but I never get a thanks when it is working. What a great example that is, yeah? And we're all guilty of it. We're all guilty, this bloody machine, these IT people, we're all guilty of it, yeah? But actually, if you've had a couple of weeks and everything's worked perfectly, how many people pick the phone up to IT? Or actually the people that got you the technology going, it's working really well actually at the moment, yeah? So that's a great example, yeah? Lack of balance that we've got going on there. But your attitude will make you feel a certain way, okay? Your feelings then determine the actions you take, because those feelings are chemical. That will give you more energy, less energy, make you feel happy, productive, or sluggish and tired, depending on what's coming out from the attitude towards trying things. How much energy, again, rhetorical question, how much energy do you guys have from doing a job you are excited about versus a mundane, repetitive task you have to do every week. The only difference in your energy levels between the job that you want to do and the job that is repetitive is how you're talking to yourself, and it comes out in your feelings, ultimately all the way through this. And then your actions give you your results. And if you don't quite get the results you want, you probably have a whinge and moan about it, and you start the cycle all over again in a negative way, rather than, that didn't go well this time, what learning can we take from it? I'm going to do it again. Okay? One of the things that distinguishes successful people from unsuccessful people is the fact that they learn from mistakes and try again. Okay? If you watch Dragon's Den, half of the dragons on Dragon's Den have been bankrupt. Okay? Peter, somebody will tell me his name in a minute. Peter, the guy on Dragon's Den, somebody tell me Peter's surname. It'll come, when you've got it, send it over to me. Peter from Dragon's Den, Jones, thank you very much, Jamie. Peter Jones from Dragon's Den, he's been bankrupt. He's been bankrupt. And what he did is learn from it and do it again. Okay? A lot of us, we might try things again, don't always learn from what we did wrong first time. And people have heard me saying this over and over again on different sessions that I've run. But if you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always got. So which means you need to take some different actions than you did last time. So you learn from the mistakes, you learn from the wins, and then you take it and you try it again. And you try it again. And we'll talk about belief when we get to the end of the session. Okay? Okay, so just to sum that up for you, because it's important, your programming, self-talk, creates beliefs. Your beliefs create your attitudes make you feel a certain way, your feelings determine your actions, and your actions will give you your results. It's called the self-management sequence. Okay, that's what it's called. And it's called self-management because it starts with your thinking in your head. Okay, so 5 stages of programming. So I'll do this for another 10, 12, 13 minutes, and then we're going to finish off with that PSG stuff that I mentioned earlier. Okay, so 5 stages of self-talk, and this is how you can flip your self-talk and use it to your advantage. Okay, stage number 1 is negative self-talk. Okay, it's called negative acceptance. That's what stage number 1 is. Okay, negative acceptance. What that means is negative comments about yourself that you also now believe because you've said them that much over time. Okay, so I'm going to ask you to get involved here. So get on the chat box, everybody. I want you to think of negative comments, okay, that you say to yourself. Right, I'll give you a couple to start. Right, I can't do that. That's just not me. I could never do or never be like. Yeah? What other negative comments might go through your head? Think about you. You want me to do what? Absolutely, that's even a question, isn't it? Yeah? You want me to do what? That's like, you know, can I really do that kind of thing? What kind of, that's impossible, John Hyde, great one. Absolutely. That's impossible, can't be done. Yeah? If somebody had said to you guys, I haven't got time, Christopher, just Chris, or Christopher, hold on that thought for a moment, okay? It's out of my comfort zone is another good one. If somebody had said to us 3 months ago, in 2 days, we're going to close the business down and everybody's going to work from home, and a few people are going to have to be furloughed, and can you still run the business? Most people would have said, well, no, don't be ridiculous. It's amazing, isn't it, what's happened in the last 3 months to prove that what we think is impossible, actually, it's improbable, but it's not impossible. Yeah, it's outside my comfort zone. Yeah. Comfort zones are interesting things, okay? Very quickly, on that note, if this, going too quickly here. If this is your comfort zone, here, comfort zone, yes, can you see that? I don't know if you can see that. No, use black. There you go. Okay, if that's your comfort zone, by using the right self-talk, you can push yourself outside your comfort zone. Okay, this is called, well, if it's really far in, if it's really just within your comfort zone, then it's actually still safe. We call it the safe zone. If it's a little bit further out, then we call it the growth zone. So doing something that's in your growth zone once a day, bit of self-talk, yeah, it starts to actually, your circle gets bigger and bigger and bigger the more that you do that's in your growth zone. The only danger is somebody asks you to do something that's here. And we call that the fear or sink or swim zone. Okay? And I'm sure you all know what I mean by sink or swim zone. But the sink or swim zone is, it's like, you know, you chuck two kids in a pool at an early age. One of them learns to swim quickly. The other one doesn't want to get near water ever again. That's in there, yeah? Yes, you should increase your comfort zone into the growth zone, but you don't want to be flying people out, unless you're that type of person that likes to feel the fear and do it anyway. And then you might go and jump out of an aeroplane or whatever. That's okay as well. But if you're not, then just look for what's that growth? What's that little bit of growth that we can do to increase the zone? That's impossible. It's outside my comfort zone, as you said. I haven't got time. Look, guys, I've talked about using time as an excuse on several other sessions. Time is not an excuse. Next time you catch yourself saying, I haven't got time, change the sentence to, I'm choosing not to do it. Okay? Because it'll help you reprioritise what you need to do for the day. Okay? You get 86,400 seconds every day. Whatever you don't use, when you go to sleep, you wipe off, you wake up, you start again. Okay? 86,400 seconds, 24 hours. That's it. Unless you have a TARDIS, you can't make any more or go to a different time, as far as I'm aware. So the fact is, you can only use the priorities during the time you've got. So I'm not going to spend more time on this, pardon the pun, because it's a separate section on its own. It's about priority and energy management, not time management. But next time you catch yourself saying, I haven't had time, or I haven't got time, change the sentence to, I'm choosing not to do it, or I chose not to do it. Because I tell you what, it's a more honest conversation. Because what you have done is done something else that was obviously more important with your time. It's as simple as that. Whether that's towards or away from motivated. Okay? That's not in my remit. Yeah. That's somebody that's not been very helpful. Okay? That's not my job. Computer says no. We all know people like that. And what I would suggest is those people are not at 100% productivity. It's not my job. It might not be your job, but how could you help them anyway? Yeah? The amount of times that we have this, you know, I can't do that, you need to speak to that department. Okay, okay, that's great. Who is it in that department? Could you put me in touch with them? So, you know, I'm not a big one for that's not my remit or that's not my job either. Because even if it's not their remit and not their job, it doesn't mean they can't help you. It doesn't mean they can't guide you, and so on and so on and so on. So, again, it's about talking to yourself in a better way and asking other people great questions as well, okay? One thing that you can do to help somebody think better is ask them a question rather than tell them something. Okay? So if somebody says, do you know what? It's just bloody impossible. It can't be done. Yeah? Instead of saying, well, it can be, because straight away now they're in a defensive mode. If you say to them, okay, it's impossible. Okay? If that's impossible, what else could you do? And now what you've done is you asked a question rather than give a statement. And it's a helpful question because you've got could in there, which means it's going to engage their imagination. And they start thinking about possibilities. Dare I say, they start to think of solutions rather than problems. So they become more solution focused than problem focused. And that's the whole point of self-talk. And it's also the reason why my business is called solution focused. Because a lot of our self-talk is problem focused. And it's problem focused in case we need to go into fight or flight. So there's a scientific reason why our brains are problem focused, because if we focus on the problem, if we need to go into fight or flight, we can. The issue is, a lot of the things these days, we don't need fight or flight. We need to change the internal dialogue. so we can go and do something different in our minds about it. So, but that's the reason why. Okay, good answers, great, guys, brilliant. So, level number 1 is negative acceptance. Talking to yourself, I'm rubbish at this, I'm no good at that, I'm crap at this, it always works out that way anyway, why should I bother? All of that stuff is called negative acceptance. Stage number 2 is recognition of the need to change. Okay, so I know I do that, and I need to do something about it. Because until you get to the point where you go, I need to do something about it, it's just denial. It's just, well, yeah, I know I do that, but I'm not doing anything about it. Okay, so stage number 1 is you're doing it. Stage number 2, you're noticing the need to change. I need to do this differently. Okay, I ought to be doing this now. Okay, I should be doing this. So stage 1 is talking to yourself in a bad way. Stage 2 is recognizing the need to change. Now the reason these are in stages is because psychologically you need to work through these stages. Okay, if you were very self-destructive and you went to see a therapist, they would work you through these stages. They wouldn't just go, well, cheer up and start talking to yourself in a better way. Sorry, I got a call. And Teams Interactive. No, no worry, Christian, you're all right. It's no problem at all. So, as I've said before, stage number 1, you're talking to yourself in a bad way. Stage number 2, recognise the need for change. Okay? Stage number 3. Stage number 3 is the decision to change. Now that is different for the need to change. You have to consciously make a decision in stage number 3 that I'm going to do something differently going forward, and then you act on it. You make a decision and then you act on it. And then you start saying things with the past tense. I never get annoyed in traffic anymore. That was the one I personally picked because I know it's one that a lot of people would get, except for I bet a few people would quite look forward to a traffic jam at the moment. Quite interesting how things change, isn't it? Yeah. I no longer put things off anymore. I don't do that anymore. So you're talking in the past tense, okay? Because I don't do that anymore. This is what I do now, okay? So that's stage number 3. It's putting that past behind you. I don't do that anymore. I used to beat myself up quite a lot, but I don't do that anymore. I used to be terrible at that, but I don't do that anymore. So it's just adding that sentence on, I don't do that anymore. That's not, I used to do that, but I don't do that anymore. Okay? Then you move to stage 4. And stage number 4 is the level of a better you. So this is now where it all turns positive at this point. Okay? I am doing this now. So for argument's sake, I am better at this. I am improved on that. Okay? I am organised, whereas I used to be disorganised, but I don't do that anymore. That was stage 3, remember? I am now organised. So you're flipping it now completely into a positive, or should I say a helpful sentence or question that's coming out. Okay? Then I like who I am. That's quite a big one that's in there. But if you've got a piece of self-talk, you don't like who you are, you should be, I should be better at that, should be good. Until you get to this point, you can't flip that self-talk. And I want to make this point here. Helpful self-talk is stage 4. Not stage 1, 2, 3. Somebody comes up to you and goes, just talk to yourself in a better way. No. It's stage 4. Stage 1 is that you're talking to yourself in a bad way. Stage 2 is recognising that you're talking to yourself in a bad way. Stage 3 is making the decision and taking action and saying, I don't do that anymore. And stage 4 is now saying, I do the new thing. This is the new me. This is the way that I do things, okay? And then finally, there's a few more there. I'm tuned in, I'm on the ball. I choose where I spend my time. That comes into the time management one. Yeah, instead of I've never got any time, when you go through this process you end up with I choose where I spend my time and make sure it's spent in the right places. So you follow all the way through. Stage 5, which is the last one, is balance. Okay, it's actually called well, it generates gestalt, but it's called universal affirmation. There's a good little phrase for you today, isn't it? Yeah? Universal affirmation. And what that means is you feel in balance. For those that have heard me talk about gestalt before, it means balance or equilibrium. So you've gone all the way through those stages and you are in that calm, balanced, feeling good with the world and yourself place. That's the final bit. And that only comes after you've done the first 4 stages and you're repeating stage 4 over and over, and it makes you mindful and it builds new habits. At that point, you have new habits, new self-talk, and you don't have to consciously think about that self-talk anymore. You're just doing it as a habit now. Okay? But it will only work properly if you go through those 5 stages. Okay? Stage 5 arguably is an output of the first 4 stages. Okay? But you can't just go up to somebody and go, you need to talk better to yourself. You know, you always put yourself down. You need to talk about, you need to say better things to yourself. Because it depends which phase they're in. They might be still in denial and talking to themselves in a bad way. They might have recognised they need to change but don't know how, or are scared to, for argument's sake. But once they get into the, okay, I don't do that anymore, then they can start talking to themselves in a better way. I will be good at this. There's a nice little psychological trick. If you want to take it, it's called can, will, am technique. I can do this, I can do this, I will do this, I will do this, I am doing this, I am doing this. Okay? Psychologically it helps in the brain. Okay? Some people kind of go, vision yourself doing it. I am now running a marathon. If you've never run a marathon before, you might struggle to believe that you can run a marathon. So I can run a marathon, I can run a marathon, I will run a marathon, I will run a marathon, I am running a marathon, I am running a marathon. And I am being successful with it. Can, will, am. Nice little trick. But there are 5 levels of self-talk. And that's why, if you want some more information on this and you are serious about changing this in your head, go and get that book, have a read of it, because there's 3 or 4 pages on every single level that we've just gone through that you can take some more information on. There's only so much I can give you in an hour, obviously. Okay? So, those are the 5 stages. And you can start right now. Stop doing levels 1 and 2. Okay? I can't, I need to, and start doing levels 3 and 4. I no longer do that. I am now doing this. Okay? So stop doing levels 1 and 2 whenever you can. Start doing levels 3 and 4. Give it a go and see what happens in your self-talk. So, self-talk examples. You've heard me say this one before. I am the greatest. Muhammad Ali, he would say that to himself 80 times a day from the age of 12. Okay, from the age of 12, he wasn't the greatest at the age of 12, but he also said, I am the greatest. I said that even before I knew I was. That kind of makes my point. However, you can't just sit at home saying, I am the greatest, I am the greatest, I am the greatest, and become great. The reason why that won't work is because you have to take some action on the thinking. Thinking, emotions, actions, results, but it starts with the thinking. He was saying it 80 times a day from 12 years old. I would have also put money on the fact that he would have been the greatest at some point. Okay? But you've got to take some action. He was the first one in the gym in the morning, the last one to leave. He knew he needed to move quicker, box faster, because technically he wasn't the best boxer in the world anyway. However, I am the greatest. That was the self-talk. Okay? Sandra Davis, swimmer. For those that are my age and above that can remember, a few Olympics ago, all the Olympians were wearing these skin suits. And one of the commentators on BBC, I think it was, had Sharon Davis on, and they said, look, give us an insight into these skin suits. Do they work? Because the belief is they cut through the water a bit quicker, so it can give you kind of a quarter of a second edge. So do they really work? And Sharon Davis's response was, well, if the athlete thinks they do, they will. And again, for me, it was one of those moments of going, an elite person backing up all this stuff. When you talk to yourself in a certain way, you believe it, you'll make it happen. That comes out from it, okay? Really good example there. Belief examples. You've got this guy, Amazon, here. I knew that if I failed, I would regret that. But I knew the one thing I might regret is not trying. So that was his mantra when he was boxing up parcels to send out from his bedroom when he started Amazon a few years ago. So this isn't in order, I apologise. KFC's behind there. It took Colonel Sanders 327 restaurants and 9 months before somebody bought his recipe. It took him 20 years to make his first $1 million. Okay? Belief is what caused him to continue to carry on. Finally, 3 top tips. I know I'm pushing time here, guys, but they're quite quick. First top tip for you, we've kind of already covered. Make a choice. Okay? Can you change what's happening? Can you exit from it? If not, change your self-talk, and that will change everything else around it. Okay? Number 2, put triggers in place. Ali said, I am the greatest 80 times a day. If you want to change your self-talk, start off with 1 or 2 pieces of self-talk and put it somewhere you're going to read it or see it three times a day. Why? Because your brain likes 3s. Okay? If you want to do it more than that, do it 6. Okay? But you put it somewhere you're going to see it 3 times a day. In your glasses case, on your computer, in your sun visor of your car, in your wallet if you open it 3 times a day. If you're working from home, on your fridge, I bet you're in that more than 3 times a day. Okay? Say it 3 times a day. You can have proactive triggers and reactive triggers. Okay? Proactive triggers are the ones that you write down and plan out. Reactive triggers are when you find yourself you're in a situation you don't like and you've got hindering self-talk. So, for instance, public speaking, maybe you've been asked to run an online session, or somebody in a meeting asks you for your opinion and you weren't expecting it. Reactively, you can have something written down on your notebook that might just help you calm your mind. So again, in the book that I've mentioned, and if you Google triggers or affirmations, you'll find loads more information. But basically, what it is it's something that you see on a regular basis that's going to start changing the internal dialogue in your head. Okay? Have them ready for when you have an argument, or you're in a traffic jam, or you see the red mist coming up. We've all said things in arguments we don't mean. If you can have triggers in your head ready for when situations like that happen, you can just deal with it in a better way, for argument's sake. Drop the chemical, talk to yourself and get a better output from it. Finally, last thing, thank you for hanging on, guys. PGS. I think I said PSG earlier, didn't I? PGS. Personal Growth Stasis. Okay? This is where have you been up to now? In your life, you have got in your head where you've been up to now. Then you've also got a picture of where you want to go. And if you haven't, I would suggest you write yourself a picture of where you want to go in life. Because you've got the picture that what you've done so far. Create a picture of where you want to go, where you want to get to. Okay? But the stasis is not doing anything about those things. So you are in stasis between what you've done up till now in your lives and where you want to go in your life. And if you don't take any action on that bit, then you have what's called personal growth stasis. You get stuck in that middle rut, and all of a sudden 5 years have gone, 10 years have gone, and so on and so on and so on. Okay? So, I know I'm over time, but make sure you don't get stuck in PGS, in that stasis. If you haven't got a picture of the future, create one you can aim for that's helpful. You know where you've been and how do you get from here to there. I hope you've enjoyed the session, guys. As always, drop any feedback in the chat box because I like to gather it in. If anybody's got any questions, let me know as well. Other than that, have a great week and I will see you again next week